Amara was only 17 years old, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her brown eyes were full of hope, and her smile could light up a room. It was a big day for her. She was flying alone for the first time, and not just in any seat. Her father had surprised her with a business class ticket and VIP lounge access. She couldn't wait. Wearing a neat black dress and carrying a small silver suitcase, Amara walked into the airport. Her heart was racing, but she kept telling herself, "Be calm, Amara. You belong here." She showed her ticket to the security officer, who nodded politely. So far, everything felt normal. But as she walked toward the VIP lounge, something happened that would change everything. There was a woman standing at the lounge entrance. She wore a red uniform and had a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. As soon as she saw Amara, her smile disappeared. "Excuse me," the woman said, holding up her hand. "This area is for business class passengers only." Amara smiled politely. "Yes, I know. I have a VIP pass." She showed her boarding pass. The woman didn't even look at it properly. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her voice sharp. Amara's smile faded. "Yes, my ticket is right here." The woman crossed her arms. "I think you need to wait near your gate. This lounge is not for everyone." Amara was confused. Everyone. What did that mean? Just then, a white woman in her 40s walked in behind Amara. She wore a designer coat and was carrying a fancy purse. The lounge staff smiled brightly at her. "Welcome, ma'am," she said. "Please enjoy your stay." The white woman walked past Amara without a problem. Amara looked at the staff member again. "But I have the same access. I'm going to have to ask you to leave this area." "Miss," the staff said firmly, "please don't make a scene." Other people nearby were watching. Amara felt her face burn with shame. She didn't want to cry, but her eyes were wet. She had done nothing wrong. She had the ticket. She had the pass. But still, she was being treated like she didn't belong. Slowly, she turned and walked away. Her steps felt heavy, like each one was filled with pain. She sat near her gate, far from the lounge, and took a deep breath. Then she took out her phone and dialed a number. "Dad," she whispered when he picked up. There was a short pause on the other end. "Yes, sweetheart. Did you get into the lounge?" She swallowed hard. "No. They said I don't belong there. A woman. She stopped me. But she let a white lady in. I think it was because of how I look." There was silence. Her father didn't shout. He didn't ask questions. He just said one thing. "Send me the name of the airline." Amara could hear something in his voice. He wasn't angry, but he wasn't calm either. He sounded focused, cold, like a man who was about to do something big. "Okay," she replied softly. After hanging up, she sat in silence, watching people walk by. Some looked important. Some looked rich. All she could feel was small. She didn't know that, just a few miles away, her father was already on his laptop. And he wasn't just any father. He was the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country, a quiet man with powerful friends and strong influence. When his daughter called him, something in him changed. He had built companies from the ground up, fought battles in boardrooms, and stood against billion-dollar giants. But this was personal. No one got away with hurting his daughter. And definitely not like this. The sky outside the airport turned gray. A storm was coming, but it wasn't the weather. It was something bigger, something East Sky Airways wasn't ready for. Inside the private lounge, Amara sat quietly. She sipped her tea, but her hands were still slightly shaking. Around her, staff moved carefully, offering food, drinks, anything she wanted. But they didn't understand. This wasn't about snacks or comfort. It was about respect. She wasn't here because they respected her. She was here because they were afraid of who her father was. In another part of the airport, a black SUV pulled up outside a restricted entrance. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out. His walk was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He showed his ID to security, who immediately stepped aside. His name was Jonathan Reed. He worked directly under the East Ski Board of Directors. When Elijah Carter had made that phone call, Jonathan was the first man they sent. Inside the airport office, Cassandra Wells, the lounge staff who insulted Amara, was still trying to explain herself. "I didn't know who she was," she said quickly. "She just looked out of place. I didn't mean to be rude." Jonathan didn't blink. He placed a file on the table. "You didn't know who she was," he repeated. "But you didn't need to. She had a VIP pass. That's all that matters." Cassandra looked away. "It wasn't about race," she whispered. Jonathan opened the file. Inside were pictures from security cameras, Amara showing her ticket, Cassandra waving her away, the white passenger being allowed in. "It's not just about race," he said calmly. "It's about your judgment, and your judgment has now cost this airline millions." Her eyes widened. "Millions." Jonathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Our stock dropped 3% in 2 hours after the incident went viral. Investors are asking questions, sponsors are pulling back, and Carter Technologies may pull out completely." "I didn't know," she whispered again. "You didn't need to know," Jonathan repeated. "You only needed to do your job." Back in the lounge, Amara received a message from her father. Just 5 words. "Do you want to leave?" She stared at the message. It was strange. He hadn't asked, "Are you okay?" or "Do you want them punished?" He just asked if she wanted to leave. She looked around. The luxury, the quiet, the fake smiles. It all meant nothing now. She texted back, "No, I want to finish this flight, like I was supposed to." Her father replied within seconds, "Good, you were born to fly." In the airline's main office, the East Sky CEO was pacing, sweat on his forehead, his hands trembling. Another call was coming from the Carter Technologies legal team. They wanted to review the contract. He knew what that meant. Elijah Carter wasn't going to destroy them in public. He would destroy them legally, quietly, and no one could stop him. The CEO looked at the screen showing Amara sitting in the lounge. "They messed with the wrong girl," he whispered to himself. A few hours later, Amara boarded her flight. The same flight where she was supposed to be in business class. Only now, she had a full row to herself. No one sat near her, not because she wasn't welcome, but because no one dared to say a word. As she walked down the aisle, people whispered. Some stared with curious eyes. Others looked embarrassed. But Amara didn't bow her head. She kept it high. She had been hurt, but not broken. She took her seat by the window and stared out at the sky. This was not just a plane anymore. This was a message. A message to every girl who was ever told, "You don't belong here." A message to every child who was judged before being known. At 30,000 feet in the sky, Amara closed her eyes and smiled softly. They had tried to make her feel small, but now the whole world was watching. And far below, in his office, her father watched the flight path on his computer screen. He didn't smile, didn't speak, but in his heart, he knew. They touched the wrong soul. And now, they will never forget her name. It had been weeks since the meeting with East Sky Airways. The apology had come. It had been sincere, in some ways, but Amara knew the real work had just begun. She wasn't interested in taking the company down. She wanted to build something better, something that would protect people like her, and make sure this never happened again. The Fly Fair Foundation. Amara's new project, Fly Fair Foundation, was more than just a response to her own pain. It was a beacon for the future. She started with a simple goal: to fight for equal treatment for everyone who travels, no matter their skin color, gender, or background. She held meetings with community leaders, activists, and lawyers. She gathered stories from people who had experienced discrimination while flying, and she made it her mission to be their voice. The foundation didn't just focus on racism. It also tackled issues of classism, ableism, and sexism within the travel industry. Her first public speech on the foundation's opening day was nothing short of moving. Standing in front of hundreds of people, Amara spoke with the same calm strength that had gotten her through that difficult airport moment. "I didn't choose to be the face of a movement," she said, her voice steady but powerful. "But I am choosing to do something with this chance, to make sure that every single person who flies feels like they belong, no matter where they're going or who they are." A symbol of change. As the months went on, Amara became more than just a name in the news. She became a symbol of courage, not only to Black girls and women, but to anyone who had ever felt pushed aside. Her story traveled beyond borders, beyond cultures, inspiring people from all walks of life. The CEO's change of heart. Even East Sky Airways wasn't the same. Under pressure from both Amara's foundation and their own internal review, they made significant changes. They announced a new diversity and inclusion program with stricter policies on passenger treatment. They hired a team of experts to consult on how to better train their employees to handle discrimination in real time. The company's CEO, James Holloway, publicly praised Amara's efforts. In a press conference, he said, "What Amara did, the way she responded, not with anger, but with grace and action, was something we should all aspire to. She didn't ask for this fight, but she's leading it now." Her father's pride. Amara's father, Elijah Carter, watched from the sidelines. He had helped her along the way, but it was clear that Amara's journey was something she had carved on her own. He was proud of the way she carried herself, the way she had used her voice to speak for others. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Elijah turned to her. "I always knew you were destined for greatness, but I never imagined you'd change the world in this way." Amara smiled, but there was a deep understanding in her eyes. "I didn't want to change the world, Dad. I just wanted to make sure people like me could walk into a room and be treated with the same respect as anyone else." The movement grows. The Fly Fair Foundation grew rapidly. More and more people reached out to share their stories, not just about airlines, but about all forms of discrimination. Amara's team worked tirelessly to bring awareness and create real change, partnering with other organizations around the world. Her foundation helped establish new policies for airlines, restaurants, hotels, and other industries. In one of her interviews, Amara said, "It's not about one apology. It's not about one act of kindness. It's about creating a world where everyone is treated equally, no matter what." The legacy of Amara Carter. Years passed, but Amara's impact remained. Her name became synonymous with strength, dignity, and the fight for fairness. In schools across the world, Amara's story was taught. Her name was written in history books alongside others who had fought for equality. Her foundation continued to fight for justice, working tirelessly to ensure the legacy of equal treatment was built into the fabric of everyday life. The next morning, everything changed. What began as a small act of disrespect inside an airport lounge had now grown into a storm the airline never expected and could not stop. The video of Amara being denied entry to the VIP lounge had gone viral. Millions of people had seen it. Some cried, some got angry, but most asked the same question: why did they treat her like that? The internet reacts. Across every platform, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Amara's name was trending. Hashtag Justice for Amara. Hashtag Black Girl VIP. Hashtag You Messed with the Wrong Girl. People were sharing the video again and again. They were writing messages, tagging the airline, and calling for justice. A tweet with her photo and the words, "She had a VIP pass. They told her to leave. Why?" was shared over 500,000 times in one day. People who had never met Amara suddenly felt like they knew her. They connected with her pain, and they refused to stay silent. The world stands with her. Influencers, activists, teachers, even celebrities joined in. A famous author tweeted, "This young girl was humiliated, but she stood tall. "Amara, we see you. We support you." A popular actor wrote, "Your strength is louder than their hate." And a black businesswoman posted a video saying, "Amara reminded me of myself at 17. Same skin, same dreams, same silence when people treated me less. But now, we won't be quiet anymore." Even airline staff from other companies posted messages like, "We would have welcomed you, Amara. Come fly with us next time." East Sky Airways falls into crisis. Inside the East Ski offices, nothing felt normal anymore. Emails were pouring in, complaints, cancellations, media requests. Major partners were calling and saying, "We're putting our deals on hold." Several advertisers removed their banners from the airline's website. The company's public relations team looked exhausted. One of them whispered, "This is worse than anything we've faced before." But the most powerful pressure wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within. The board of directors was furious. "You let this happen," one of them told the CEO. "And now the whole world is watching." The CEO breaks his silence. By afternoon, East Sky Airways scheduled a press conference. They hoped it would calm the fire. The CEO, James Holloway, stood in front of cameras. His hands were shaking. He began with the words, "We failed." He admitted what had happened. He apologized to Amara, to her family, and to every customer who felt let down. He also said, "We are speaking to Mr. Elijah Carter. We are listening, and we will take action." But most people watching weren't interested in his speech. They wanted to hear from Amara. Amara stays silent. For now. But Amara didn't speak to the media. She didn't go online. She didn't post a video or write a long message. Instead, she stayed at home, reading the stories of others who were now reaching out to her. Young girls, boys, women, students, flight attendants, people from all over the world. They said things like, "Your story is my story." They tried to silence you, but your silence is louder than words. You gave us a voice. Amara read every message quietly. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she smiled. But more than anything, she felt something new inside her. Purpose. From humiliation to hope. In just 48 hours, Amara had gone from being pushed aside to becoming a symbol of dignity. People weren't just defending her anymore. They were inspired by her. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't fought back. She had just stood there, calm and respectful, yet powerful. Her silence, her grace, and her strength had become something much bigger than the moment. She had become a voice, and the world was still watching. News channels continued covering her story. Schools discussed it in classrooms. Activists used it in speeches. Even passengers at airports started noticing how they were treated differently after the incident. Some said, "Amara changed how I see things." But to Amara, this wasn't about being famous. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something deeper. She told her father that evening, "If I can make one person feel seen, then maybe this pain was worth it." Elijah looked at her, his daughter, stronger than ever, and he knew, this is just the beginning. The flight was smooth. Clouds floated below the plane like soft cotton. Passengers relaxed, watched movies, slept. But Amara sat by the window, wide awake. She wasn't thinking about the food or the view. Her mind was still stuck on what had happened. She wasn't angry anymore. She was something stronger, determined. She remembered how the lounge staff had looked at her, like she didn't belong, like she wasn't important. But now the airline was falling over itself to please her. They offered her champagne, extra pillows, even came to apologize again. But to her, their faces all looked the same, fake smiles hiding quiet fear. She didn't care about their fancy service anymore. It was too late for kindness. The real damage had already been done. Far below, in the city, her father, Elijah Carter, was already moving in silence. He didn't shout. He didn't post angry tweets. He believed in something more dangerous than noise: action. In his office, Elijah had called a private meeting with his top legal team and technical officers. The room was silent, except for the sound of flipping papers and keyboard clicks. A man in a gray suit leaned forward. "Sir, are you sure? If we pull out, their system will collapse within 48 hours. Elijah nodded. "I'm not pulling out yet. I want them to feel the fear first." The lawyer beside him smiled. "Understood." At Eastskey's headquarters, alarms had started ringing. Not real ones, but internal alerts. The airline's servers were slowing down. The check-in system froze for 10 seconds, then came back. Nothing serious, yet. But the IT team knew something was wrong. "The system is acting strange," one engineer said. "Almost like someone is testing our weak points." The CEO rushed into the room. "Call Carter Technologies. Ask what's going on." They tried. No one answered. Carter Technologies had gone silent. The silence was louder than any warning. Meanwhile, media attention was growing. A small video taken by a nearby passenger had been uploaded online. It showed Amara being turned away at the lounge entrance. The caption read, "Black teen kicked out of VIP lounge for no reason." The video went viral in just hours. People around the world started asking questions. Why was she denied entry? Was this racism? Who is this girl? Then someone posted a tweet. "Her name is Amara Carter. Her father is Elijah Carter." The internet exploded. Back at the airport, the woman who had insulted Amara, Cassandra Wells, was at home, suspended from work. Her phone buzzed with calls from reporters. Some were even waiting outside her apartment. She sat on her couch, holding her head. It was just a mistake, she kept whispering to herself. But the world didn't care. The world had moved on from excuses. Back in the office, Elijah Carter made one final call. It was to an old friend who happened to be a major investor in East Sky Airways. "Elijah," the man said, "I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry." "I'm not calling for sympathy," Elijah replied. "I'm calling to ask one question. Are you still planning to invest in their next expansion?" "I was," the man said carefully. "But now, I'm not so sure." Elijah's voice stayed calm. "If you stay silent, it'll happen again. Not to my daughter, but to someone else's." There was a pause. "I'll pull the funding," the man finally said. "But Elijah, what are you planning to do?" Elijah didn't answer directly. He only said, "Let them feel the silence. Then let the silence break them." While the airline scrambled to manage the growing fire, Amara finally arrived at her destination. As she walked through the airport, cameras clicked from a distance. Reporters tried to get a word, but she ignored them. She had learned something important on that flight. Power doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it watches, then it strikes. At the exit, her father's car was waiting. She stepped inside. Elijah was there, calm as always. He looked at her face for a moment and simply said, "Proud of you." Amara nodded slowly. "Are you going to destroy them?" He looked out the window and spoke softly. "No, I'm going to teach them." In less than 24 hours, East Sky would lose a major investor. Their CEO would receive a warning letter from their board. Their social media accounts would be flooded with angry comments, and they would be forced to issue a public apology. But that was just the beginning. Elijah's revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet, precise, and impossible to ignore. Because some people screamed to get attention. But others, the truly powerful ones, just press one button and watch everything fall. Amara sat quietly near her boarding gate. Her eyes were dry now, but her heart still ached. She had done nothing wrong, just tried to use the VIP lounge like anyone else. But they had made her feel like she didn't belong, like she wasn't good enough. She looked around. No one noticed her pain. People were on their phones, sipping coffee, laughing. But inside Amara's world, everything had changed. Far away, in a tall glass office building, her father, Mr. Elijah Carter, closed his laptop. He stood silently by the window, his hands behind his back, staring at the city below. To the world, Elijah was a quiet, powerful businessman, the CEO of Carter Technologies, a company worth billions. He had worked hard his entire life, not just to build wealth, but to build respect. But today, the world had disrespected the one person he loved most, his daughter. His phone buzzed. A message from Amara. The airline is East Sky Airways. He read the name slowly, his lips pressed together. Without saying a word, he sat back at his desk and started typing. Not fast, not in anger, but with calm, careful focus, the way a hunter prepares before taking the first shot. He opened a file. It was a contract from 3 years ago. East Sky Airways had signed a deal with his company. They were using Carter Technologies' cloud system for their entire airline management, passenger tracking, bookings, employee data, everything. He picked up his office phone and dialed a number. "Get me James Holloway," he said. The voice on the other side replied, "The East Sky CEO." "Yes," Elijah said, "and don't tell him why I'm calling." Meanwhile, at the airport, Amara saw a man in a black suit walking quickly toward the East Sky Lounge. He was tall, white-haired, and looked serious. He showed a badge to security. They let him through immediately. Inside the lounge, the woman in the red uniform, the one who had insulted Amara, was laughing with a coworker. But when she saw the man in the black suit, her smile disappeared. "Is your name Cassandra Wells?" he asked. She stood straight. "Yes, sir. Can I help you?" The man showed her an ID. "I'm James Brooks. I work for the East Ski Board of Directors. I need to speak to you. Now." She followed him into a side office, confused and nervous. What was going on? Outside, people were beginning to whisper. Something big was happening. At East Ski's headquarters, the CEO, James Holloway, picked up the phone. His face turned pale when he heard Elijah Carter's voice. "Mr. Carter," he said quickly. "What a surprise. How can I?" Elijah cut him off. His voice was calm but cold. "One of your employees treated my daughter like garbage. She had a business class ticket, and they told her she didn't belong. Because she's black." There was silence. I didn't know." The CEO stuttered. "You didn't," Elijah said. "But now you do. And now you will fix it. Fast. I'll have someone call her, apologize." "No," Elijah said firmly. "You'll do more than that. I want a full report. Names, actions, timelines. I want that staff member suspended immediately. And I want a public apology, not a private one." "But sir," the CEO said, "there's a process." "You use my company's system," Elijah replied, "and I can shut that system off in 30 minutes. The CEO froze. He knew it was true. If Carter Technologies shut them out, every flight, every check-in, every schedule would crash. It would be a disaster, a very public one. "You have 1 hour," Elijah said. "After that, I don't care if your planes ever fly again." Then he hung up. Back at the airport, Amara was still waiting for her flight. She didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. She didn't know her father had just shaken an entire airline. Suddenly, a woman approached her. She wore a black blazer with the East Sky logo. Her face was pale, her smile nervous. "Miss Carter?" she asked. Amara stood up slowly. "Yes. We would like to apologize. Please follow me." Amara followed her through the airport. People stared. She was taken to a different lounge, not the one where she was humiliated, but a private, quiet one usually used by celebrities. A chef brought her tea. A manager stood nearby, ready to serve. But Amara didn't smile. She only asked one thing. "Why are you doing this now?" The woman said nothing. Because the real reason wasn't kindness, it was fear. By morning, everything had changed. What started as a quiet insult in an airport lounge had now become a headline around the world. News channels, blogs, YouTube videos, and social media feeds were flooded with one name: Amara Carter. And 4 simple words were spreading like fire across the internet. She was treated unfairly. The video clip of Amara being denied entry had now been viewed over 22 million times. It showed her standing calmly, holding her VIP pass, while the lounge staff waved in a white woman behind her. It showed her pain. It showed the humiliation, and people everywhere felt it. They shared their own stories, their own experiences, their own anger. Some were young girls. Some were older women. Some were people who had never experienced racism, but now they saw it clearly. The world was watching, and this time it wasn't staying quiet. Online reactions. A teacher from London tweeted, "I'm showing this video to my students today. It's not just about racism, it's about dignity." A college student wrote, "I've been Amara before, denied, judged, pushed aside. But I didn't have a father like hers." A celebrity actress posted on Instagram, "Dear Amara, if you ever need anything, support, help, or just someone to talk to, I'm here. You matter." At Eastski Airways headquarters, panic had become the new normal. Their social media team was overwhelmed. Every post was met with comments like, "Apologize to Amara. This is racism, plain and simple. Shame on your airline." One trending hashtag was everywhere. #JusticeForAmara. The airline was losing followers. Sponsors were pulling their ads. Journalists were showing up outside their offices. Investors were asking hard questions. And worst of all, Carter Technologies still hadn't answered their calls. The board of directors met in emergency meetings. The CEO of Eastski, James Holloway, hadn't slept in 2 days. He looked tired, his suit wrinkled, his voice shaky. "We underestimated them," he said quietly. "No," corrected one of the board members. "You underestimated her." Meanwhile, Amara sat in her bedroom, quietly reading messages, thousands of them. From girls in South Africa, boys in India, women in America, even a young mother from Brazil. They all said the same thing: "Thank you for standing tall. You showed me I'm not alone. You are my hero now." Amara didn't feel like a hero. She was just a girl who wanted to use the lounge she paid for. She never planned to start a movement. But sometimes the truth doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up and opens people's eyes. Later that day, a live interview was announced. The CEO of Eastski Airways was going to speak. People all over the world tuned in. The press room was full. Cameras flashed. Microphones were everywhere. James Holloway stepped up to the podium. He took a deep breath. "We are deeply sorry," he said. "What happened to Miss Amara Carter was unacceptable. It was not just a mistake. It was a failure of our values, our training, and our leadership." He paused, looked into the cameras. "I have spoken to Mr. Elijah Carter personally, and more importantly, we have reached out to Amara to ask for her forgiveness." He ended the speech by announcing that the airline would begin a full review of all staff conduct and launch anti-bias training in every location worldwide. But not everyone believed him. The damage was already done. People didn't want fancy speeches. They wanted real change. And Amara, she didn't watch the speech at all. She was outside, walking quietly with her father through a quiet park. He asked, "Do you want to respond?" She shook her head. "No, I've said enough without speaking." He smiled. Sometimes silence is louder than words. Later that night, Amara opened her laptop. She had created a private email for anyone who wanted to share their story. Within 12 hours, she had received over 3,000 emails. Most were from teenagers. Some were heartbreaking. A 14-year-old black boy wrote, "I was kicked out of a store last week. They said I looked like trouble. But I wasn't doing anything wrong. Another girl said, my school doesn't treat us equally. I didn't think anyone would care until I saw your story. Amara realized something that night. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her pain had opened a door. And now voices from every corner of the world were walking through it. She looked out her window at the night sky and whispered to herself, they tried to make me small, but now I'm standing for something big. 2 days had passed. The world was still buzzing. News channels kept running the story. More celebrities spoke up. School debates were held in classrooms. Social media was still filled with Amara's name. But Amara herself remained silent. She stayed off the internet. She didn't reply to the media. She didn't attack the airline. She didn't need to. Her silence had already said more than 1,000 words. At East Sky Airways, the crisis was reaching a breaking point. Bookings had dropped by 18%. 2 major investors had pulled out. And now, their entire future was at risk. Inside the boardroom, the CEO stood with a pale face. His team had tried everything: press releases, public statements, internal reviews. None of it worked. Because there was one thing still missing: a real apology. Not just to the public, not just to the cameras, but to Amara Carter, face to face. The meeting request. That morning, Elijah Carter received a call. The voice on the other end was shaky but polite. Mr. Carter, the man said, on behalf of East Sky Airways, we're requesting a private meeting. We would like to apologize to your daughter. In person. There was a long silence. Then Elijah replied, calmly, let me ask her. He hung up and turned to Amara, who was sitting on the couch, reading another message from a young girl in Kenya who wrote, I watched you stand there, quiet and proud. You looked like how I want to be. Elijah asked, they want to meet, just you, me, and their top team. They say they want to apologize. Amara looked up. Her voice was soft. Do they mean it? I don't know, Elijah said. But I do know one thing. You hold the power now. The room of apologies. The meeting was set at a private office. No cameras, no media. Amara entered the room slowly. Her father walked beside her. Inside, 3 men and 2 women stood waiting, including the CEO, James Holloway. They all looked nervous, not just because they were facing Elijah Carter, one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, but because they were facing Amara, the girl their company had tried to ignore. The CEO stepped forward. Miss Carter, he began, thank you for coming. Before anything else, I want to say, I'm sorry. He looked straight into her eyes. You were treated unfairly. You were judged, and you were hurt because of our failure. Not just a failure of policy, but a failure of heart. There was no script, no written speech, just honesty. The others in the room also apologized, one by one. Some admitted they hadn't spoken up when they should have. Others said they were now pushing for internal change. Then the CEO added, we know that no apology can erase what happened, but we want to rebuild trust with you and with every passenger like you. Amara's response. The room was silent as they waited for her reply. Amara looked around. Her voice was calm. I'm not here for revenge, she said. I never was. I just wanted what anyone deserves, respect. They all nodded. She continued, what hurt most wasn't just what was done to me. It was that everyone around saw it and stayed quiet. She paused, then looked directly at the CEO. If you're serious about change, prove it. Not for me, but for every kid who looks like me, walks into your airport, and feels like they don't belong. The CEO nodded slowly. We will. A new beginning. After the meeting, East Sky posted a final public message. But this time, it wasn't a press release. It was a full video with the CEO speaking directly. He explained what happened. He named the mistake. And most importantly, he said Amara's name. He said, To Amara Carter, thank you for your grace, your strength, and your silence. You reminded us what leadership really looks like. And Amara, she didn't post a response. She didn't need to. Instead, she made a quiet announcement on her personal website. I am launching the Fly Fair Foundation, a support network for young travelers who face discrimination in public spaces. This is not the end. It's the beginning. Her face was everywhere, but her words stayed clear. Respect isn't a gift. It's a right. And this time, the world wasn't just watching. It was listening. Years had passed since Amara's quiet stand in the airport lounge, but her impact was still being felt around the world. Her name had become a symbol of hope and strength, of dignity in the face of injustice. The story of the black girl kicked out of the VIP lounge had sparked a global movement, a movement that was still growing, still changing lives. A growing foundation. Amara's Fly Fair Foundation had expanded far beyond her original vision. What began as a way to fight for fair treatment in the travel industry had turned into a global initiative to combat all forms of discrimination. The foundation worked with schools, businesses, and governments to ensure that everyone, regardless of their race, gender, or background, would be treated with the respect they deserved. Amara had become an international advocate for equality, speaking at conferences, meeting with world leaders, and even appearing at the United Nations to discuss global human rights. Her words, simple, clear, and powerful, had the power to change policies, to open hearts, and to inspire action. Her work was paying off. Companies and organizations worldwide were taking diversity and inclusion seriously, adopting new policies, and holding their staff accountable. Thanks to Amara, change wasn't just something talked about, it was happening. Her father's support. Elijah Carter had always been there for Amara, guiding her and helping her stay focused on her goals. But he knew, as any father would, that his daughter had become more than just a girl standing up for herself. She had become a force of nature, a force for change. One evening, they sat together, reminiscing about the early days. Elijah chuckled softly. I never thought that one little video would lead to all of this, he said. Amara smiled, her gaze steady. I didn't want it to be this big. I just wanted to make sure that no one else would ever feel like I did. You've done more than that, he said. You've changed the world. Amara nodded. I didn't do it alone. It took all of us. A moment of reflection. Despite the busy schedule and the many events, Amara always found time to reflect. She often visited the place where it all started, the same airport lounge where she had been turned away. Standing there, quietly watching people pass by, she couldn't help but think how far she had come, how much had changed. She thought about the faces she had met along the way, the families who had thanked her, the young people who had come to her foundation for help, their voices filled with hope, because they now felt like they could stand up for themselves too. She had done something that few people ever get the chance to do. She had created a ripple effect. Her actions had inspired others to take a stand, to fight for what was right, and to never accept injustice, no matter how small. Her influence on the next generation. In schools across the world, Amara's story was taught. Her name was included in history books, beside other heroes who had fought for equality. Teachers shared her story with their students, encouraging them to stand up for themselves and others. Many young people wrote to Amara, telling her how her story had inspired them. Some said they had been afraid to speak out before, but now they felt they had the courage to do so. Others told her how they had started their own projects, working to make their communities fairer and more inclusive. One letter stood out to Amara. It was from a 13-year-old girl in the UK who wrote, I saw your story on TV, and it changed my life. I've always felt like people don't take me seriously because of the color of my skin. But now I know that I have a voice, just like you. Thank you for showing me that I can make a difference. Amara kept that letter close to her heart. It reminded her that the ripple effect she had started would continue long after she was gone. A lasting change. The world had changed because of Amara. The Fly Fair Foundation had helped hundreds of thousands of people find justice and support, and its work was still growing. But it wasn't just the foundation that made a difference. It was the values Amara had instilled in people everywhere. Respect, equality, dignity. Her quiet strength had shown the world you don't need to shout to make an impact. You just need to stand tall, stand firm, and never stop believing that change is possible. The future. Amara's life wasn't just about what she had accomplished. It was about the future she had shaped. A future where every person could walk into any space and feel like they belonged, no matter their background. She had proven that one person, one voice, could start a revolution. And she had shown the world that true change doesn't come from hate. It comes from the quiet power of standing up for what is right, no matter the odds.